Throughout this week, we've been talking qualitatively about the feeling that Joe Biden's presidency has turned around. We've listed the different accomplishments over the last 2-3 months, and particularly over the last 3 to 4 weeks. But we didn't yet have anything quantitative to answer the question, is there really a turnaround happening? Is Joe Biden's approval actually increasing? And the reason we care about that is not so much as a curiosity, although it's interesting to see a president have such a low approval rating for a while and then see it recover, because what tends to happen during presidencies is there's an erosion of approval over time. What is interesting about it is its impact on the November midterms, which are now just roughly 9 weeks or so away by very, very, very rough estimate looking at the calendar. If indeed Joe Biden's approval rating continues to increase at the rate at which it has over the last 10 days, it is all of a sudden looking very bad for Republicans in November. So the first question is, what are the numbers? Well, Joe Biden's approval rating has spiked 11% in a very short period of time. Now, for those who may or may not understand the precision with which I am speaking, 11% increase is not an 11-point increase. The approval rating of Joe Biden bottomed out at 37.5 right on July 21st, and it has now gone up to 41.6%. That is, of course, not an increase of 11 percentage points, but it is an 11% increase in 1 month. That is significant. And if you see even half or 2/3 of that increase continue until November, you're going to have a quite popular Joe Biden on the day of the midterm elections, because these midterms are, in a sense, referenda on those in power, which in this case includes a Democrat in the White House, Democrats controlling the Senate, although barely, and Democrats controlling the House. The conventional wisdom would be that would be very good for Democrats. And you can tell that Biden is sort of reinvigorated in a sense. He is back on the campaign trail and starting to be visibly campaigning for Democrats running in November. Yesterday at a rally against a Trump-allied Republican in Maryland, he gave a quite good speech in which he slammed the MAGA movement as semi-fascism. And I think that that's a pretty good term. I sometimes call it wannabe fascism, wet dream fascism, authoritarian, wishing, whatever you want to call it. Joe Biden back out there. And listen, these are just empirical questions. There was the feeling that there was a turnaround. That turnaround is very much reflected. This is, and by the way, if you look, even though the number is still under 42% for Biden's approval, the rate at which it increased is significant, and we have not seen that during Biden's presidency so far. It matches essentially the quickest decline that we saw in August of 2021 as Republicans were slamming Biden for the pullout from Afghanistan, and COVID numbers were not looking good. This is as rapid an increase as we have seen a decrease during the Biden presidency, and we still have time, but it so far bodes very, very well. Completely opposite what is going on for Joe Biden, which has been very good. Things are going disastrously for the failed former president, Donald Trump, who is desperate to claim innocence and try to get himself out of all sorts of legal trouble and potentially justify another presidential run in 2024. Donald Trump had a historic meltdown yesterday on Truth Social, declaring himself innocent. And you have to see these posts, just a sort of diarrhea of the post. Donald Trump starting, quote, "Even though I am as innocent as a person can be, and despite my campaign being spied on by the radical left, the FISA court being lied to and defrauded, and all of the many hoaxes and scams that were illegally placed on me by very sick and demented people, and without even mentioning the many crimes of Joe and Hunter Biden, all revealed in great detail in the laptop from hell." It looks more and more like the fake news media is pushing hard for the sleaze to do something that should not be done. That's an insane message. It is nuts that a former president typed out that message and posted it publicly. There are probably 10 lies and distortions in that short message. And by the way, Trump saying that he is as innocent as anyone has ever been, to me, suggests he's guilty. Now, this isn't a court of law. I'm not suggesting Trump be denied due process. This is the court of common sense. Many things, the more strongly Trump claims A, the more likely the opposite of A is likely to be true. And Trump's kind of interesting in that he's very direct in that sense. Many politicians will equivocate and they'll play semantics or they'll kind of massage facts or distract and muddy the waters. When Trump's guilty, he'll just come out and say, I'm innocent. That's been the theme. Trump continuing to post, quote, Joe Biden said he knew nothing about the break-in of Mar-a-Lago or the greatest political attack in the history of the U.S. Does anybody really believe this? Now, there is no evidence Biden knew anything. And of course, it wasn't a break-in. It was a search warrant signed by the attorney general, okayed by Trump's own FBI director appointee, and a judge signed off on it. So again, all lies. Trump continuing, quote, the radical left Democrat prosecutors are illegally trying to circumvent for purely political gain the Presidential Records Act, under which I have done absolutely nothing wrong. It cannot be circumvented for me or any other president. They illegally raided my home, untrue, and took things that should not have been taken, untrue. They even broke into my safe, an unthinkable act. Well, the safe was listed in the search warrant. Everything was perfectly legal. Trump then resorting to just tweeting, or I'm sorry, not tweeting, trothing in all caps, Presidential Records Act. Trump then posting, quote, the Justice Department and FBI are, quote, leaking at levels never seen before, and I did nothing wrong. I think Trump's brain is leaking at levels never seen before. And then Donald Trump also putting out a statement, which is crazy, which says Joe Biden and the radical left Democrats have just orchestrated another election-enhancing money grab, this time to the tune of $300 billion. And just like I predicted, it's coming right out of the pocket of the working-class Americans who are struggling the most. Crippling inflation, unaffordable energy prices, and war. All things that should have never happened. But if that wasn't enough, now Americans are bailing out college administrators who fleeced students and who opted for degrees there was no way they could afford. America is a nation in decline, and the cliff into oblivion is within sight. Stop voting for Democrats. Make America great again. A clear, very inspirational message from Donald Trump. It is not normal for anybody. When your neighbor flips out on social media like this, it's cause for alarm. This is a failed former president doing it, and it's incredibly humiliating. Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law, husband of Ivanka, appeared on Fox News. He was asked about these documents that Donald Trump stole and kept in his house, and Jared Kushner played about as dumb as I've seen anybody play. This really takes some skill to play this dumb.
Leading political opponent is a very serious thing.
It's a very serious thing. I think that Americans on both sides of the political aisle have some real questions about what they did. There's a section in the book where you talk about the Zelensky transcript, and you argued, let's get it out there. Yeah. Let's just put it out there. So are you arguing right now to your former boss and father-in-law, put out what these documents are, put out what they're about in these presidential documents. Tell everybody what's in there.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether he knows what's in the boxes or not. Again, these were boxes that were in storage. If anyone knows Donald Trump knows he keeps a ton of stuff. They're always in boxes all over the place. And, who knows if they were things that he did intentionally, unintentionally.
Yeah, not only might he not know what was there, those things maybe were unintentionally there. Now, here comes it's already it's stretching credulity. But then it gets really weird.
There's reports I've read that the GSA packed the boxes. So like I said, I think that right now what we want to know is what's in the affidavit. I think that's the transparency we should get to. But I do think President Trump was probably one of the most transparent presidents that we've had in a very long time.
Now, of course, that's completely untrue. Missing call logs from January 6th, all sorts of obfuscation, people missing from White House visitor logs. Arguably, again, Democrats are going to do voter fraud. What they meant was we're going to try to steal an election. Trump was the most transparent. Really, Trump was the least transparent.
And he sat for interviews all the time. He was always answering questions from the press. You knew what he thought of at 12 o'clock at night when he would tweet. You knew what he thought at 6 in the morning when he would tweet.
Yeah.
And so I know he definitely is often on the side of transparency.
Have you asked him, if he knows what's in there, or if he went through them, or if he intentionally kept something back when the FBI, when the lawyers said that they had already taken out everything that was classified?
I haven't asked him that, but I have been with him since then, and he hasn't seemed too concerned about it.
Right. One of the as they love to say, an unprecedented situation in presidential history where a search warrant is served at the president's home because of the documents he stole. Jared acknowledges he's hung out with Trump since, but they just haven't talked about this. It just didn't come up, if you can believe that.
Okay.
And Martha McCallum, okay, I'm just accepting it. Martha McCallum should be ashamed. Jared Kushner should be ashamed. But again, this is happening on a network, Fox News, where they just believe stuff. They believe what they're told. They don't sit and think, these aren't really tough questions and there's no follow-ups and Jared's explanation makes no sense. No, they just go, listen, they've met, but Jared doesn't know. He hasn't talked to Trump about it. As one of his closest advisors from the entire presidency, it simply didn't come up. They were talking about golf and well-done steak and putting ketchup on steak. That was really the only thing they talked about. But on Fox News, the viewers just accept it. They go, yep, that's what it was. They talked about other things. This is so funny. Radical and repugnant reactionary Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene started complaining about how student loan forgiveness, which Joe Biden is now doing, is it's bad. It's unfair that some people don't have to pay back loans they took. I mean, they took out a loan and now they don't have to pay it back. And it turns out that Marjorie Taylor Greene took out a nearly $200,000 PPP loan. That was the money made available to businesses in the pandemic relief packages during the Trump and Biden pandemic relief packages. And it was forgiven. She didn't have to pay it back. Isn't that just the best? Listen to this. Here's Marjorie Taylor Greene attacking the Biden student loan debt relief.
That's why they're the party where you don't have to pay back loans. That's why they're the party that is just ripping our country apart. And Joe Biden is wrong. He can't break the law and just forgive everyone's student loan debt. It just doesn't work that way.
Right. The Democrats are the party where you don't have to pay back loans. And then we find out that the Marjorie Taylor Greene and husband business, Taylor Commercial, received a loan for $182,000 and they had $183,000 forgiven. Why is the amount forgiven more than the loan amount? Well, they also had accrued interest forgiven. Isn't that nice? That loan was reportedly for employee wages. Of course, as with any of there's so much PPP fraud. The IRS is investigating generally. We don't have any reason to believe they're specifically investigating the Marjorie Taylor Greene loan. But how much of that money, in theory, for employee wages actually went to Marjorie Taylor Greene's employees? That's a very, very good question. And by the way, when she says it's the Democrats who are the party of not paying back debts, she supported Trump, who often didn't pay debts, often didn't pay people that he owed money to. Now, I do want to mention there is some consistency here. I have to sort of concede it's pretty obvious hypocrisy, but there's one way you can interpret this in which Marjorie Taylor Greene is being consistent. She's about compassion for businesses when it comes to finances, but not for individuals. And in that sense, it's coherent with her philosophy, to the extent we can call it a philosophy, that she's mad about individuals not having to pay back loans, but she's fine with businesses not having to pay them back, even when it's all a complete sham, what a lot of these businesses did with the PPP money. But there it is, Marjorie Taylor Greene, a hypocrite. Wednesday, August 31st, 6 p.m. Eastern, we are doing a members-only town hall. It will be broadcast live to everyone, but only our existing members will be invited to participate in this one and chat with me. We will be streaming it on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. But if you want to participate, you do it via our Discord at davidpakman.com/Discord. And of course, to be invited, you must be a member at joinpakman.com. I'll remind you about it next week. Don't forget that the best way to support the David Pakman Show is by becoming a member, which gives you access to the daily bonus show, the regular show with no commercials. You also get access to our entire archive of every episode dating back a really long time and plenty of other awesome membership perks. Go to joinpakman.com and use the coupon code BETTER21 for a huge discount. Joinpakman.com. The David Pakman Show is a viewer and listener supported program. You can sign up at joinpakman.com. You will, of course, get instant access to the world famous bonus show.
Oh, the bonus show where you want to make money. Everybody else that makes money to fund themselves is bad.
Thank you. Alex Jones hates it. We love it. And you also get a commercial-free audio and video stream of the show every single day when you sign up at joinpakman.com. Let's now speak to the most important people involved with the David Pakman Show, which are the viewers. Without the viewers, I'm a guy in a room with a microphone, and it's sad and it's disappointing. So we take calls via Discord at davidpakman.com/Discord. And today we're going to start with Jonah in Las Vegas. Jonah, welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
Hey, David, just wanted to know your thoughts on the Nevada Senate race that is coming up. I'm from there, so just interested to hear your thoughts.
I haven't been following it, to be honest. What's going on?
The Republican, it was Trump's number one big lie sort of conspirator in the state. He was attorney general in 2018.
Oh, Adam Laxalt.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's one of the closest Senate races by the polls, by the metrics, by professionals, whatever.
Yeah, what I'm seeing is that Catherine Cortez Masto has overtaken Laxalt in the latest polls, even though he had been leading. Is that correct?
It's been back and forth throughout the cycle, but yeah, regardless, it's going to be incredibly close. I think Biden won by 2%. And she, in her initial election, also won by 2%.
Yeah, so, and the polling actually seems controversial because there's only two polls from August. One has Cortez Masto up 7, and one has Adam Laxalt up 3. I am not a fan of Adam Laxalt. I think he's absolutely horrifying. And I support Cortez Masto there. And I think that's an important race for people to follow and get involved with. You can phone bank. We don't want to give that one to Laxalt.
Definitely.
All right, my friend. Otherwise, Vegas is good?
Yeah, I mean, it was really hit very hard by COVID, but with the service industry. But yeah, it's coming back.
Well, thanks, Jonah. Great to speak to you.
You too.
All right, there is Jonah from Vegas with a reminder about a very, very important race, that's for sure. Let's go next to Guy from Killeen, Texas. Guy, welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So I had a question that deals a little bit more in like the conspiratorial route regarding like Trump's views on political views.
Okay.
He's never really ever made sense to me as like a because I'm a Democrat, and whenever you hear Democrats speak about Republicans, sometimes you will hear like them take the most extreme views, like on abortion or something, where they say the mother needs to be punished, and you always say that like SNL should be put out of the job because a lot of the things that Republicans do are just beyond parody at this point.
Yes.
So, like, what would make you believe, like, if it ever came out in a book or something after Trump's death or something, that he was, like, just secretly a Democrat all this time, just living that caricature that they've set out for Republicans this entire time, but actually just was elected to the presidency?
So here's my thought. I don't think that. So here's the thing. The idea of Trump as a secret Democrat doesn't really make sense in the sense that he genuinely did so much damage. Like, that would make more sense if Trump, quote, pretended to be a Republican and then became president and did a whole bunch of stuff that Democrats would do. But Trump became president and then did all sorts of horrible things that Democrats would never do. So what I think the scam is that Trump was relatively apolitical. He, based on where he grew up, Queens and Manhattan, he probably was a sort of casual center-left guy his entire life. And then he just doesn't have the morals to say, I'm not going to pretend to be something I'm not. But he said, I'm not going to win the Democratic primary. I can only win the Republican primary. He got some traction with criticizing Barack Obama. And so he was never a committed or real Republican in a sense. It's just he's developed this character for his political presence out of expediency. But like the secret Democrat idea in the way you're proposing just doesn't really make sense to me.
Okay, yeah. It was also part of that, like what you mentioned, that like maybe he was taking one for the team or something like that in a sense. But okay, that makes sense.
All right, my friend, thank you very much for the call. The audio, I bumped the audio up as much as I could, and hopefully we were able to hear him. Let's go next to, let's go to Herb from Long Island. Herb, welcome.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, and thank you for taking my call. Also for Herb, it's with a harder H. But
You say fine. Herb. All right, fair enough.
Yeah, with a harder H, that's all. Anyway, I do have a quick question for you,
Sure.
And it's also about Trump. I know you've said before when Republicans accuse people of things, it's actually an admission of guilt. Right.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it sometimes is. It's not literally that way. I'm not saying deny them due process.
Not one for one, but like,
yes.
We should pay attention to that. Like,
exactly.
We should take pause and think about it.
Correct.
So a lot of these Republicans are saying they're worried that, and this is so stupid, that Democrats would assassinate Trump. Like, that's absurd. We all agree that that just isn't going to happen. However, what do you think the likeliness of an attempt, not a successful one, mind you, I'm pretty confident the Secret Service would stop it, but an attempt on his life from a conservative because of the Mar-a-Lago raids and these ideas that he might have dirt on them, sort of like an Epstein scenario, whether he did or did not get assassinated. I won't get into that, but if that is the case, like, do you think that is something that could happen to Trump? Not that he will.
In the next segment, in the email segment today, two people write in with a very similar idea to what you're saying right now. I actually think that from a motive standpoint, it kind of does pass the sniff test, the idea being like, hey, let's talk about the left or deep state or whatever planning to kill Trump. But really, we're the ones who want to kill him to get him out of the way so we can take back the Republican Party. Totally plausible. I mean, really totally plausible. I just don't think they're that organized, quite frankly. So I don't actually expect anybody from the right to try to kill Trump.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't think it would be an organized thing. I think it would just be like one billionaire trying to do it or something like that.
I mean, listen, if we're talking about something completely unorganized and random, of course that could happen. There could always be some assassination attempt, sure. But I mean, it's not really the type of thing we can predict in any serious way.
Yeah, and I don't think it would ever happen. Can I ask you one quick non-political question?
I would be honored.
Yeah, so I know you live in the New York general region. I won't get into specifics. But when it comes to food outside of New York, what do you think is like the one food that once you leave New York, you can't get it anywhere else?
Once you leave New York, you can't get it anywhere else.
You won't be able to find as good a food. To give you an example, I think of, everyone talks about pizza, but I really think it's bagels. You can't get a good bagel outside of New York, in my opinion.
I don't know about that. So first of all, I was just in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. It's not the same thing. Montreal bagels are their own thing, but I believe that they are just as good as New York bagels. It's just a different style. And to be perfectly frank, I mean, there's a lot of places where you can't get good bagels. Like once I was in Indiana and I tried getting a bagel and it was like, it should have been illegal what I was handed. But like in LA, there's plenty of good bagels. I don't know. But I do agree with you that like, other than a few places, New York is the bagel place for sure.
Yeah, I'm in Ohio right now. I live in New York. That's why I have the Long Island tag. But I'm visiting some family in Ohio, and we had to bring them bagels because they just don't have them here.
Yeah, you know a crazy story. When in college, my girlfriend did a study abroad in Spain, and this was years ago. And there were no bagels anywhere in Madrid except one place started getting bagels. And so she's like, wow, this is great. If I'm from the northeast of the US, I'll be able to get a bagel. She goes and asks for a bagel. Can I have cream cheese on it? Oh, no, cream cheese. What's that? We can put mayo on it. So what they thought that the application for a bagel was just a smear of mayonnaise, if you can imagine.
Oh God, that sounds awful. I don't like mayonnaise to begin with.
And just as a spread, I mean, come on a sandwich, it's one thing, but yeah.
Yeah, if it's an additive, okay, but as its main course, ugh.
Yep. No, we're on the same page, my friend.
All right. Thank you for the call. I'll let you get to other people. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Very, very questions of critical importance, I would say for sure. Let's go next to Kevin from San Diego. Kevin, welcome.
Hey, David, how's it going?
It's going well.
I was not expecting you to call me. I was like busy with playing video games. All right. Well, yeah. So, I guess I'm still wondering, like, what is going to happen with this Trump execution of a search warrant because it was not actually a raid. Is have we found anything more out about what's going on with that?
In what sense? Find out more in what? Do you mean like are there going to be charges, that type of thing?
Well, I mean, the latest thing that I heard was that there was Trump was looking after getting the what was it, the affidavit?
Yeah.
It released to everyone, which I think Pat was saying on like Monday or something. You know, that could backfire on Trump if that's something, but we don't really know what's in that affidavit yet. Yeah, I don't know. I'm wondering how all of that's gonna shake out if you have
Listen,
any
we don't know yet. There's a couple different things that might happen. If it sort of evaporates and nothing happens and there's no charges and it just kind of fades, the narrative from the right will be this was unnecessary and outrageous and meant to humiliate Trump. And they will have a case that case will feel very strong if that's the case, because this is a big step to take. It was a completely legal step. They crossed all the I's and dotted all the T's, as Sean Hannity said. But if nothing happens, to do this to a president is a big step. So that's one possibility, and that will probably strengthen the right. Beyond that, there's a number of other possible scenarios whose timing, is it before or after the midterms? Is it before or after Trump potentially declares his candidacy for 24? There's just too many unknowns right now to say.
Yeah. I mean, I want it to be something where I'd say having like the affidavit get released, but like redacted any kind of people's names that would be potentially targets of right-wing extreme people going after them. That I think that would be good, because having something that like sort of proves like, yeah, Trump does have somebody that's in his organization that basically sold him out and told them that there was all these documents that would be, I think, the potentially most damaging thing that could come from the affidavit, which is the confirmation that there is a sort of mole or traitor, which has been speculated but not proven. Yeah. But then again, that also comes with the downside of, if the mole or traitor is revealed, but it's not redacted, then like that person's going to be, everybody's going to be going after them, like them going after Bruce Wayne and Dark Knight Returns. Which I don't want. I want people to be safe. No. So, yeah. Yeah, that would be bad. Well, let's give it another couple of weeks and see where we are, around mid-September. Yeah, sounds right. All right. Thank you for the call. Very much appreciated. We're going to take the quickest of breaks, but don't hang up, because then we're going right back to the Discord lines and we're going to hear from more people. So just stand by. We will be right back with more of your calls. If you value what we do at The David Pakman Show, remember to support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show, where you can get access to behind-the-scenes videos, the daily bonus show, the commercial-free daily show, as well as special discounts on merch, including hats, hoodies, mugs, and t-shirts. You can support the show for as little as $2 a month. Check it out at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Let's get back to the phones. And by phones, I don't really mean phones. I mean Discord, because we use Discord now, and we are going to hear from some people. Just as a reminder to everybody who's waiting in the waiting lobby, if you have a nickname, if you have, some kind of joke or whatever the case may be, I will not be going to you. So it's totally fine to have your nickname or whatever. I see people with all sorts of nicknames. Your name has to be in the format of your name and where you're calling from in order to be eligible to get on with me today. Along those lines, let's go to Sam from Minnesota. Sam, thank you for sticking to the rules with your nickname.
Yeah. How's my volume?
Your volume's pretty okay. Yeah.
All right. So, I guess just a Minnesota question. We've been on top of the voting turnout for quite a while. I think the last 5, 6, 7. No, I think Maine beat us back in 2010. Anyway, so we have had the best turnout. Do you think if turnout continues to skyrocket, do you think we'll stay on top, or do you think we might lose out to somebody,
That's a very interesting question. I didn't know, but you were right. It looks like the top turnout in the U.S. in 2022. Now, what does this include? I guess this must be primaries. It's Minnesota, New Jersey, and Oregon. Does that sound right to you? The top turnout states? Very, very interesting.
I didn't know New Jersey was so high. The last general in 2020, Maine was second place, but New Jersey would be really skyrocketing if they were number 2 because they were.
You know what I'm seeing? I'm seeing New Jersey's number 1 at 85% and Minnesota's number 2 at 83%. Can you believe that?
80. Wow. If New Jersey's in the 80s, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
They must have some really determined primary goers.
Yeah. So, now that I have the data in front of me, what was your question?
Well, just in the general, do you think Minnesota will stay on top, or do you think it's going to be in New Jersey?
I have no idea. I mean, listen, I don't know the dynamics of you've got like primary and general. I think that all of these states are going to be high. Part of it is the relationship between what is the process to register to vote versus how likely are you to go and vote. So there's this, my instinct is there's this kind of reverse mechanism where if it's harder to register to vote, which I'm against, right? I think it should be really easy to register, but if it's harder to register, your turnout as a share of registered voters might end up being higher because there's sort of like more obstacles to get registered. So you're probably more enthusiastic about voting. So I don't know enough about voter registration process in New Jersey, Minnesota, Mississippi, Oregon, which are the top 4 turnout states. I think we're just basically guessing and we have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think I'm not so sure about automatic registration, but like same day registration where you walk in to vote and you're like, oh, I'm not registered. Well, let me just register then.
Yeah.
It's incomprehensible to me that anybody doesn't do that. Minnesota does, and we've done it since the 70s. And
right.
But
beautiful. Well, congratulations to Minnesota for voting, and we'll see what things look like in the fall.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Thank you for the call. Very much appreciate it. Let's keep talking to people because, I don't know, there are people who want to talk, and it seems like it's a great thing. Let's go to Guillaume from Montreal. Guillaume, I had a beautiful time there last week.
Oh, hi, David. Well, glad to hear you had a beautiful time.
You know what's
how was
crazy?
The weather when you came over? I mean, I did not go out all that much. I was pretty much secluded at home.
It was insanely hot, actually. And you know what? I told the story, or I'm going to tell the story on today's bonus show. I was recognized on the street more in Montreal than anywhere else that I have ever been. I was only there 6 days, and 12 people came up to me to say they watched the show.
Nice. I mean, to be fair, most of us use your show, The Young Turks, and David Pakman. Not David Pakman, Farron Cousins, my bad.
Okay.
As a great way to stay informed on what's happening all the way over there.
Beautiful.
Country USA.
That's fantastic. Well, what was on your mind today?
Well, first and foremost, just pointing out that when we talked last time, my friends really liked your idea of trying to tackle the campaign finance as a constitutional amendment.
Good.
And my actual big question right now is a lot more static. It's a lot less hypothetical. It's a question of what do you feel about calling the current era of politics worldwide, not just in the US, an era of, what could I say? I'm looking for the word here. There we go. Glory politics. So it's all about getting your name on something. It's all about getting your name to be recognized as the name that did something good.
I don't think that that's unique to this era. I mean, for me, there are other things that strike me as unique to this era, including the high percentage of people engaged in politics who quite literally have no idea what's going on and understand nothing about anything. Like the fact that that's a movement and it's a movement that has pride. We don't know a damn thing about anything and we vote and you've got to deal with us. Ha ha. That seems much more unique to this era. You know, the glory politics stuff of we want bridges and all these different things named after us. I feel like that's been going on at least since the 50s in the United States.
I get what you're getting at, but I'm more thinking about before it's been built, I want my name on it. I mean, we all know that Obamacare was essentially dubbed Obamacare after it was passed because it was more convenient than saying Affordable Care Act every single time you wanted to say it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think you're wrong that this exists. It doesn't strike me as the most notable thing about the era. I'll put it that way.
No, that's perfectly fine. On that lovely note, have a great day, and thank you for taking my call.
Guillaume, real quick, are you a St. Viator bagel guy or a Fairmount bagel guy?
That's a great question. I'll have to say Saint Viateur.
Wow, that's a big declaration from you.
It's mostly because every single time I have a bagel, that's the most available to me where I am.
Oh, okay. So it's a convenience thing.
And I've never had a single problem with it, so it's a recognizable brand for me. It's a literal, I know this is good enough for me. Beautiful. I don't need to go test further unless that's unavailable.
Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I like that, Guillaume.
I mean, don't get me wrong. If you serve me any other bagel, I'll take it and probably enjoy it just as much as long as it's of decent quality. Just don't get me to try and choose another than that one.
I'm with you. All right, my friend. Thank you for the call.
Thank you, and have a great day.
All right. There's Guillaume from Montreal. Let's go next to, where are we going to go next? Because we really have quite a situation happening on the phone lines. Let's go to Grant from Ohio. Grant, welcome.
Thank you, David, for taking my call.
My pleasure.
Hey, I was.
And Grant, you've got to turn off those Discord blings. You've got to do not disturb, turn off notifications. You know, whatever it is that needs to be done, we got to do it.
All right, sorry.
No.
Hey, I was wondering if there was any updates with the Matt Gaetz the criminal investigation with possibly sex trafficking. I know it's been going on for quite some time now.
You know,
but
I just saw a story this morning, and I just didn't have time to look at it in detail. It's a Daily Beast story from yesterday, actually, which is called 8 Sources Say the Feds Are Not Done with Matt Gaetz. And these 8 sources told the Daily Beast that the investigation is still very much alive and that Matt Gaetz is not out of the woods. That's this article, you know, and that's the 8 sources that they have. I don't know any more than that, but that's, 12 hours old at this point. So I think that's the newest info.
Yeah, I just saw an NBC poll where it says he's going to win his district again.
Oh, of course.
And I think it also said that district's been red since at least 30 years ago.
It's been a long time. He's absolutely going to win. Yeah, no, I think, listen, what we know is he's a horrible person. He may have committed crimes, and there's currently a very serious investigation into that.
Yeah, it's just kind of sad. And then another, I don't know if this would be a personal and also professional question. Do you ever plan on writing any books about anything or politics? In the
I'm sort of working on a proposal now, and I have so many things going on that it's tough to finish it and move on to the next step. But I am in the middle of a proposal, and as soon as I have something to announce on a book, I will.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking my call.
My pleasure, Grant. Thank you. There is Grant from Ohio, very, very respectful in every way, which we love. Let's go to Timothy from Miami. Now, Timothy, are you in Miami or Miami Beach?
I am just in Miami.
Okay, that's fine. That's okay. That's allowed.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Let me turn down my microphone here. Is there a way for you to turn me down, or do I have to do it myself?
No, you're everything's fine. What was on your mind today?
Oh, well, I just want to say, I wanted to bring up a good point that hopefully you could tell to other people.
Sure.
But the thing is, so I've noticed that the Republicans and the whole idea of Trump winning the 2020 election and spreading the lie that he did, the big lie, is kind of like our modern day version of the lost cause myth from the Civil War. Do you understand what I mean?
No, not at all.
Well, it's the sense that conservatives are once again lying about something. With the lost cause narrative is the idea that the Civil War was not about slavery, it was about states' rights. You know what I mean? It all revolves around a lie, where today it's Donald Trump didn't lose the 2020 election. Joe Biden stole it. You understand what I mean in that sense?
You know, I kind of do. Yeah, the lost cause of the Confederacy is the general narrative that really the motivation for the Confederacy was to preserve states' rights in principle. And it just so happened that that would also allow slavery to remain legal. But that really wasn't what they wanted. It wasn't about slavery. I just don't know that I'm understanding how that is equivalent to the big lie. I mean, you're just saying it was a lie that that's what the Confederacy was about. And it's a lie that Trump won. Both are just lies.
I mean, I guess it's also and also in the fact that it's also being peddled by, once again, these extremist conservatives that, you know, have not really gone away. And, you know, it just seems there's just something about both situations that seem, because, you know, a lot of time in American politics, a lot of the situations that we're suffering from today are often the same issues, are often rehashed issues from generations ago. You know what I mean?
Well, so I don't know if this is exactly what you mean, and I apologize if we're having trouble understanding each other, but one of the things that you're saying that is actually resonating a lot is we're talking now so long after the Civil War, and yet you still hear certain political partisans repeat this thing. It wasn't about slavery for us. It wasn't about slavery for the Confederacy. Could the big lie become that, where even 100 years from now, you still continue to have people saying, you know, Trump really did win in 2020? That seems possible.
I was going to say that, you know, Southern people have, you know, engraved this into the minds of their children and to their grandchildren. And I believe it's very possible they also could have tried to change Southern history, you know, propaganda films and stuff like that. You got Death of a Nation.
Yeah.
It's very possible these extreme Trumpist conservatives that are somehow even more extreme will try to do something to put into people's minds that Trump really did not lose. And if 2024 does not go for Trump, we could be seeing some catastrophic violations of history, freedom of speech. Do you understand what I mean?
I do very much so. I do very much so.
It's kind of like the same effect, and it's just something about it that I just can't get out of my head.
You've said it beautifully, and I share your concern, and let's monitor and see what happens.
Thank you so much, David. I'm a huge fan of the show. Last time I was on your call, it didn't really go well. It was during Biden's State of the Union address.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we were able to communicate today. There's Timothy from Miami. And on that note, we're going to go to a break. We will take calls again soon. And when we do, I hope to be able to speak to you. Follow us on social media. Interact with the David Pakman Show community. See exclusive content. See when we're taking calls live. And stay up to date on other big show announcements. We post daily. Find us on Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, and TikTok. All right, let's get into this week's mailbag. info@davidpakman.com is the place to email if you have something to say. Sometimes we'll take a YouTube comment or a tweet reply or a Facebook message or whatever. Starting today, in fact, indeed, with a Facebook message from Gianni, who said, "You look like a Soyjack in real life, effing loser." Now, this was a new one. I recently asked on my Twitter, what does it mean to be cuck-pilled? Not a term I had heard before last week, and it was unclear what it meant. I also didn't know what a Soyjack is, so I looked this one up. This one apparently is a meme which is often used in online discourse where you post a Soyjack, which I guess is an image. And the idea is when you post it, you're saying the person you're arguing online with is a beta soy boy. So that's that. And apparently I am a Soyjack in real life, maybe not on the internet, but in real life, I am a Soyjack. So very, very important messaging there. Brandon wrote in about a potential Biden pardon of Trump. And Brandon says, David, longtime listener, first-time question. Wondering if you could unpack the hypothetical scenario of Biden pardoning Trump in an effort to bring the country together to avoid the inevitable political and cultural turmoil of such a process. Thank you for your level-headed perspective. You know, I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility that if the next few months or the next year for Trump go in a particular way, and I would call it going south for lack of a better term, I actually don't think it's completely impossible that Biden would consider such a pardon, again, to unite the country, sort of in the way that It happened with Nixon. But my hope is that he wouldn't do that, because at some point we have to be, if no one is above the law, it means not only that anybody can be charged, but it has to mean that people actually have to have consequences for the things that they do if they are found guilty of doing those things. So I do think Brandon's instinct is right, that Biden does seem like the type of guy who would go above partisanship and in certain scenarios might say, I'm going to pardon Donald Trump. We're thinking many steps ahead. But I hope that it doesn't happen, because I do think that we really need to put our money where our mouths are when it comes to individuals not being above the law. And that means when there's a consequence, you don't get out of it because you used to be the president. Greg wrote in about this deep state assassination plot theory. We've heard from right-wingers like Steve Bannon and Rudy Giuliani and others over the last few weeks that the Mar-a-Lago raid might be the first step by the deep state to eventually assassinate Donald Trump. And it sounds crazy. Greg says, here's my theory regarding the deep state assassination attempt. You're always saying that when the right is accusing, they're usually the ones guilty. I believe they're floating it out there for one of their own to assassinate Trump so that they can make a martyr out of him in hopes to push their agenda further and also make the Democrats look terrible. What are your thoughts? Thanks. Love the show. Right. That's an interesting idea. And in fact, there could be two layers. Let's just think about motive, just because it's fun, even if we don't think this is really what's going on. If you are a Republican and you're worried that Trump is really terrible for your movement, you could say, hey, you know what's perfect? Let's get Trump killed, because then, one, we get him out of the way, and two, we can run on the left killed him, and it'll just be great for us. We can have a non-Trump candidate energized by this alleged assassination of Trump by the deep state or by the left or whatever. Certainly a beautiful, beautiful idea. I don't think that that is what they are planning in this particular case. But if you disagree, certainly let me know, because it's an interesting one. Keith also wrote to me about the Trump assassination. And Keith says, David, what group has brought up assassination? The far right. Trump is cooked. He's going to be a bad package as investigations continue. It is not the Democrats or some nutty deep state. It will be the Republicans getting traction and political support as Republicans take him out. The Republican leadership are done with him and want to take control of their party again, make Trump a martyr, cause a total political uproar. Bannon will take him out. Well, listen, if the right wants to kill Trump, I don't think it's going to be Bannon. But Keith with a similar idea there for sure. And again, I get the motive. Truly, the motive actually does make a lot of sense. But I don't actually think that that's what's going on. Austin has sort of gotten to the end of his rope. Austin wrote in and says, if Herschel Walker wins, I'm out. David, sir, this is Roy. Well, okay, the email says it's Austin, but then says it's Roy. This is Roy from South Jersey. As we know, Herschel Walker is a disgrace, a joke, and cannot speak. But this crossed the line. His ex-wife aired a commercial where she described him choking, beating, and pointing a gun at her on multiple occasions. Walker's response? Quote, when they attacking me, that means they are scared of me. They know I gonna be the one to win that seat because they got to come out and try to attack me. Continue to bring up things that is really helping me. I wanted them. I'm glad they brought up the attack with my ex-wife. This is done a long time ago. It was done to help people because that commercial there only tells people I'm going to continue to be a warrior. I'm going to continue to fight for mental health. Him beating his wife was done to help other people. If he wins, I'm moving. I don't know where, but I cannot live in a country where one of 100 senators is this mentally challenged and or evil. I don't know that I would use all the exact same words that Austin/Roy is using here, but there is a certain despondency that I completely identify with. If this guy can win, despite being unable to even put together a coherent sentence over the intelligent and well-versed and politically knowledgeable Raphael Warnock, it would be such a humiliation for everything we know of our country. And listen, I'm not threatening to move, but it would be really, really bad. Brian wrote in about Bo Hines and says, David, did you see the Bo Hines interview? He's a Trump-endorsed former college football player that's running for Congress in North Carolina. He thinks when people are calling the U.S. a banana republic, they're referring to the clothing store. The Republican Party is indistinguishable from an SNL skit or an Onion article. Brian from Minnesota. I did see that. It's a wild clip. I don't have it pulled up here, but you can easily find it if you Google Bo Hines Banana Republic. He talks about, like, when he mentions, oh, they're calling us a banana republic, he talks about the manager of a Banana Republic store. Like, he completely doesn't get that Banana Republic is a pejorative for countries whose, you know, the idea is they've gotten advanced enough to produce bananas, and it's a pejorative, and it's not a term that I tend to use, quite frankly. Keith wrote in and says, conservatives aren't a fraction of the population, especially when considering that demographics show that as of 2021, 23% of Americans age 18 to 29 are considered conservative, compared to 45% of Americans 65 plus. Likewise, 34% of Americans 18 to 29 are liberal, compared to 21% of Americans 65 plus. Compare the conservative and liberal stats, and that would be 68% demographic majority compared to a 55% liberal minority. Hardly a fraction of the population of conservatives, as you falsely stated. It also wasn't a fraction of the population that got Trump elected into office. A Gallup poll as recently as 2019 showed conservatives outnumber liberals 25 states and highly in 19 states. Based on all of that, you have no idea what you're talking about. So no, Keith, I'm sorry. You have no idea what I'm talking about. So there's two things here, and all of this word salad doesn't address it. Number one, when you talk to people about their views on issues, you quickly realize that the country is as left as it has been since polling has existed. You ask about, should the government provide a basic level of health care to everybody, even if they can't pay? Okay, you look at the answers on that. You ask people, should the government tax the very rich in order to help the very poor have a basic standard of living? You ask about whether abortion should be legal in most cases. You ask about gay marriage. You ask about, is climate change real? When you talk to people about issues, you find an electorate that is as left as it has been in the modern political era. Number two, it really is a minority that got Trump elected into office. Only about half the country votes, and less than half of those who voted for Trump, right? Hillary got more votes and Biden got more votes. Okay. So it is literally a minority of the country that got Trump elected. So the polls you're talking about are how do people self-identify? I know tons of people that say I'm a conservative, and then I ask them their views on issues and they're liberal on every issue. So it is you that is confused, Keith. And I would encourage you to, maybe read up a little bit. Jasic wrote in and says, David, sir, you've already addressed several times the conservatives' response to all criticism of Herschel Walker's inability to vocalize his thoughts on any subject. But I can't recall you emphasizing the context. He's running for Senate, which requires intellectual capacity. The definition of discrimination is unjust or prejudicial treatment. So it is not discriminatory to expect a person making the most consequential decisions for the entire country to make some sense. Yeah, that's a fair point. Often when I and others criticize Herschel Walker for being unable to express his political positions on any issue, for being unable to speak coherently, for just mumbling word salads that don't make any sense, some of the reaction will be, oh, you're discriminating against people who maybe lack education or lack cognitive capacity or have mental illness or have chronic traumatic encephalopathy or whatever. No, what I'm saying is we have 100 senators and they should be able to think clearly and express themselves coherently. And so Walker doesn't meet the requirements. And of course, in a literal sense, the requirements are to be a citizen and to be the right age, and to live in the state in which you're running. What we would all, as a collective society, I think, agree on is we should have smart people who can understand issues and explain themselves and speak. It is not discriminatory in the sense that he doesn't meet those fundamental basics. And I think Jasic is completely correct. Paul wrote in about electric cars, and he does not like my recent defenses of electric cars, saying cars are the most dangerous, inefficient, expensive, and environmentally and socially harmful means of transportation available. Electric cars reduce one of those problems, carbon emissions, although with some offsetting costs in terms of mining. If you really want to address the climate disaster, you need to focus on a host of reforms which will reduce or eliminate our dependency on cars as our primary means of transportation. Listen, I'm right there with you. There is no greater advocate than me for better public transit. This means both within and between cities. Our national rail is a complete and total joke. We, in many cities, public transit is a joke. I would much rather a future in which vehicles are sort of on demand and driverless, so that, listen, for most of us, our cars sit in a driveway, on the street, or in a garage 90% of the time or more of the day, right? Most people aren't driving 2.5 hours a day, which is like 10% of the day. So my preference would be dramatically reduce the number of vehicles, have an on-demand system where when you actually need a vehicle, it shows up, gets you where you need to go, and then brings other people around. The reforms we need are dramatic. And yes, obviously, just public transit is great. The reality in the United States, when there are so many suburban and rural areas, is it seems more likely to me that on-demand autonomous electric vehicles are going to be a better fit for parts of the country than like high-capacity buses, where you just don't have the number of people needing these particular routes to justify it financially. In much of the country, that is the perfect solution. So listen, I'm with Paul, but when it comes to electric vehicles versus internal combustion engines, I am on the side of electric vehicles. info@davidpakman.com. Questions, comments, whatever, let me know. info@davidpakman.com. And of course, make sure that you are signed up at joinpakman.com so that you get instant access to the bonus show.
Oh, the bonus show where you want to make money. Everybody else that makes money to fund themselves is bad.
Hard to make a better case for the bonus show than that. Joinpakman.com. We will see you then. Oh, today on the bonus show, I will tell the story of my first visit to a Starbucks in 20 years. It happened earlier this week. How did it happen? And what happened? I will tell you.